Hi everyone, welcome back. So we're going to look at the FPL Week One initial team pick here. So guys, let's dive straight in.
Okay, so when we look at the goalkeepers first, and obviously I think we touched upon it already about the three sort of most popular goalkeepers are going to be the ones right at the top there. I expect them to be, in and around it again. Pickford, obviously, Everton keep a lot of clean sheets. Raya as well for Arsenal, and Sells for Forest. I think Sanchez as well is another one potential that you could look at. But the one that I'm sort of looking at is I think Kelleher at 4.5 million is a bit of a steal. Brentford have got a decent set of opening fixtures as well. And I just think obviously having him is going to be a real sort of asset. The £4 million keeper, I just don't think you can look past Dubravka. I think you have to have that £4 million goalkeeper on your bench as well, just to sort of spare money elsewhere. And he could play games. If Nick Pope doesn't get the nod or gets injured, then yeah, I think he's your man. I think when you sort of look further down at the sort of the cheaper goalkeepers, there isn't really sort of much out there. It'd be interesting to sort of see in regards to Petrovic at Bournemouth. I think he's another one who's definitely worth a look at, £4.5 million as well. But for me, I think Keller just gets the nod for the first choice. The £4 million goalkeepers, the other ones potentially to sort of think about is now Trafford's going to Manchester City. Is obviously Green or Hladke, or whether it's Vice, obviously who gets the sort of the nod in there as well. Sort of going forward. So yeah, that's something obviously to sort of consider. But I think for me, I would go with my choices would be Kelleher and Dubravka as well. But I can certainly see looking at this, a lot of people are thinking very similar to me. A third of people have got him. I just think they all rate him as a goalkeeper. I do as well. And then yeah, the next sort of four or five are the ones I've sort of highlighted and picked out as well. I can't really disagree with that. Darlow's an interesting one at Leeds. Obviously, he's probably going to play £4 million. I just think that Dubravka, I'd rather have him in an occasional game that he might play. He's got more chance of keeping clean sheets. But yeah, I think obviously Dubravka and Kelleher for me as well. So jumping into defenders, obviously here we've got again Carvajal was the sort of the top goal scoring defender last season. Again, I expect him to play most games. I think he'll play probably more centre half this season with Nate Nori coming in at left back. Probably share those sort of duties going forward. For me, I think you have to have a Liverpool defender early on in the season, and Virgil van Dijk is that one. He's going to play every game. He's a set piece threat as well, and I think with the new sort of scoring system, I think he'll do well. I think Kukurea as well is another one who's going to sort of do well again. Chelsea's early fixtures are not too bad. He just offers you so much of an attacking threat now as well down that sort of left hand side. I think he's going to be a real sort of keen one as well. He does like to get sort of stuck in, and I think he'll again Virgil van Dijk and him will sort of benefit from the points changes, and defenders getting sort of more points from that. I think Guavahal is a bit of a worry in regards to is he going to play every game, the old pet roulette system. I think obviously it's a bit of a quandary there. So yeah, I think Kukurea and Virgil will be the first two in there. I think the problem for me with Liverpool is Frimpong and Kirkes are very interesting, but when you've got Bradley and Robertson as well, are they going to be rotated? Are they going to play every week? So we'll have to wait and see. Forest and the next ones, Oleana, Murillo, and Milenkovic. They've got a nice sort of set of fixtures. I think they're definitely three. I think Nuno Gomez will play a bit more of a defensive formation this season. He's always notoriously quite a sort of defensive-minded defender anyway. I'm going to give the nod to Milenkovic. I think just because of his goal-scoring threats from set pieces, and again with the new point-scoring system, I do think it is worth spending that extra money in the defensive areas this season compared to last. Interesting players at 4.5 is Wan-Bissaka. A lot of people, I imagine, will probably win. I think he's very cheap at 4.5 million. I think he's got better over the years as sort of an attacking sort of fullback. He's always sort of been sort of known as a very sort of defensive fullback, but last season he was getting forward a lot more for West Ham. Can chip in, with an own goal nowadays as well and some assists. So again, he loves a tackle, and again with the new point scoring system, I think Wan-Bissaka is definitely someone 4.5 million you would want to consider. So I'd have Wan-Bissaka in my team. I've popped him in there. So looking at who people have selected, again, it doesn't surprise me seeing Wan-Bissaka at the top. As I say, Frimpong for me and Nouri, I'm just not sure whether they're going to play every game. And that's obviously my worry. I do love both players. I had Nouri last season in my team, but Wolves Mean at City now, obviously, he's going to probably get more points as well. Arsenal's opening fixtures are quite tough. Conte's a good sort of alternative as well at sort of £4.5 million. But again, they've got a tricky. I think they've got a tricky sort of opening set of fixtures. Villa, not as easy as sort of some. So again, it's sort of a player I'm going to sort of stay away from for now. Margay as well there as well at Crystal Palace is someone else to sort of consider. I just think Palace have got a tough run of games in the opening weeks of the season. The next ones I think are the Spurs lads, which is Van der Ven, 4.5 million. Missed a lot last season through injury, but before that was probably one of the best defenders in the league. Again, I think will benefit from the new point scoring systems, and also probably will benefit from Thomas Frank as manager rather than very attack-minded Ange Postecoglou. The doggy again is another good one at 4.5. But when you actually look at his stats and actually how many sort of goals chances he does create or scores, I just think Van der Ven's just a better option for this one. And to score, to score more points with the new system, I think is a good one. Scott Parker is someone who likes to have sort of a quite sort of defensive sort of outlook. Looking at the Burnley defenders, I think Esteve is a good sort of choice. Tuanzebe as well is a good one. I'm a second Esteve. Just give you some really good sort of options in there from a defensive point of view. So moving on to midfielders now. Mo Salah's there, obviously, from his 344 points again last season. He's obviously very expensive at £14.5 million. Yeah, he's someone you would try and sort of get into your sort of team, and you can sort of see why the amount of points that he scored on opening match days for the last few seasons has been absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, I think for me, he's just a player I'm going to just shy away from this start of this season. Just because of trying to sort of get a few more sort of players into the team. I think if you try and get him in there as well, I think you're having to sort of sacrifice elsewhere, and having to spend in a little bit extra in those sort of midfield areas for me is going to be key. And I also think a little bit what's putting me off is having those away games at Newcastle, home against Arsenal. Yeah, is he going to get the amount of points? Maybe. I'm just not so sure. One I definitely sort of want in my team is Cole Palmer. I think he's in for a great season this year. I do think Chelsea will be up there challenging for the title this year. I think he's got a nice opening run of fixtures, and I think he'll just look back to his old self really in pre-season on set pieces, and I think he'll do very well. Semenyo is another player as well who I really like, and probably a player I'm going to try and gain. I think if we take away the opening fixture of the season and maybe bring him in week 2, I think he's a good sort of option. He shoots from all angles. Burnley are going to create plenty, but he shoots from all angles. Bournemouth are going to create plenty of chances. So again, he's someone I would definitely consider. Looking at the sort of the players who did sort of well last season, when you look at Gibbs White, for example, what's his future going to look like? Alanga's obviously gone to Newcastle. There's now Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes as well, sort of in there, and Jacob Murphy. So there's a lot of competition for places in there for him. Yeah, and obviously Jacob Murphy and Rodgers obviously did very well last season. I think Rodgers again could have another good season for Villa. They've obviously lost a couple of attacking players there, so a lot on his shoulders, a lot on Ollie Watkins' shoulders. So again, he's someone reasonable at sort of £7 million. Your Cunhas and your Mbeumo's, I think will do well for Manchester United, but they've just got such a tough run of fixtures. I think early on, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, even Fulham away is a tricky sort of game. So I'm just waiting to sort of bide my time and have a look at see how they sort of shape up early on in the season. Eze is always a good option as well for Palace. He's got him obviously up in value now, 7.5 million. He is their sort of talisman. Obviously Enzo is another player I identified I thought would be a good option at 6.5 million potentially if you're running a little bit low on funds. He was a little bit more of an attacking threat towards the end of last season, played a little bit further forward with Caicedo and Lavia behind him. So again, he could offer some good options in there as well. So yeah, and as you sort of scroll down, sort of Son's still in there. He's obviously coming down a lot in price. Saka as well, but Arsenal's got a tough start of the season, and that's what's sort of making me stay away from him and Rice. Although I think Rice will prove a popular player with the new point scoring system as well, and he'll probably have a bit more of an attacking role as well this sort of season. So I think obviously Salah's definitely one a lot of people are going to go for, but yeah, for me I think Semenyo, Palmer are two I'm going to sort of stick in there for now. I'm really sort of pleased to have both of those in the squad. So if we look at who people are selecting, doesn't surprise you, doesn't it? Nearly 60% of people are selecting Mo Salah. But for me, Florian Wirtz, I think £8.5 million, £6 million cheaper than Salah. I'm not saying he's going to score the same amount of goals as Salah, but I think goal contributions, I think he's going to be very high in there as well. I think the Premier League is absolutely perfectly built for Wirtz, and definitely I think £8.5 million. I think he's just too good an option not to sort of have in there. Kudus at £6.5 million, but obviously with Thomas Frank, I'm not quite sort of sure how he's going to sort of play and line up and who's going to sort of be in the team at the moment in time. And Dye is a really interesting one at sort of Everton. He's dropped back into midfield. I expected he would be popular. There's something that although they've got a good opening sort of start to the season, and got some games where they could get some points. What worries me is looking down here, no assists. That's really interesting that he actually got no assists last season, 9 sort of goals. So I was expecting more from that, but maybe Everton will be a bit more of an attacking threat this season. Shekri is a quality player, and if it wasn't for Pep Roulette, he'd be definitely someone at 6.5 million. I think it's a bit of a steal, to be honest, for the quality that he's got. But you just can't rely on Pep and who he's going to play week in, sort of week out, going forward. I think Johnson as well is another sort of good option potentially in there as well. I think he ended the season really, really well for Spurs, had a really good sort of run. Foden will get back to sort of the player he was, but yeah, I'm always, apart from, like I always say, Rodri and Haaland are the two who always get picked. And Ramsey is going to prove very, very popular. He was a big money signing, obviously, for Burnley a couple of seasons ago, and I think it was nearly £14 million. And he's obviously fighting his way back to sort of fitness, but I think at £4.5 million, I just don't think you can sort of shy away from him. I always like to have sort of a bargain midfielder in there again to allow you to sort of bring in a few more premium players in. And I think Ramsey is the standout for that at this moment in time. I think £4.5 million too much of a steal. Dringer's someone I really, really like, obviously. I thought he looked really good in patches last season at Brighton. And I think he will get a lot more game time at Sunderland. He only started 12 games last sort of season, but in that he obviously got 5 sort of goal contributions, and the previous season to that obviously he got sort of 7. So I think he's definitely someone, and with their sort of opening fixtures, I think Sunderland's got a good opportunity to sort of score some points. So I think Adringa is definitely someone I'll be interested in sort of bringing into my team. So the other sort of cheaper players, you're looking at sort of like your Lewis Miley's, your Devaney's at Palace as well. I quite like the look of him, but I'm just worried whether they're actually going to get the game time that they sort of need. So I think for me, I think out of the sort of the cheap sort of £4.5 million players, I think Ramsey is definitely the one that you'd want to sort of get into your team. So looking at forwards now, obviously, you've got your usual suspects at the top there, so Alexander Isak, but obviously with everything going on at the moment in time with Liverpool and his interest in his supposed injury, I just maybe think it's a bit of a risk at the moment in time, sort of, get him into the team. I think Chris Wood as well had a fantastic season last year. I've always liked Wood, but I think that 20 goals is a little bit sort of out of character. I think if you look at his previous seasons, around that 12, 13, 14 mark when he's having good seasons is about right for him. I think he's not going to get as many chances created for him this season. I just don't see him as an option. I think Jared Bowen position move still doesn't put me off. He's captain. He's on set pieces. He'll play week in, week out. Again, West Ham have got a decent opening sort of set of fixtures. I think he's definitely one who could score some good early points. Watkins. He's the only striker Villa's got now, so he's going to play week in, week out. Whereas last season, obviously, he wasn't always guaranteed to start. He'd missed 7 games, but obviously that was more when John Duran was around or Rashford and people. But they're not there anymore. So again, if it wasn't for Villa's sort of opening run of fixtures, then you might sort of want to look at that. Jan Visser has obviously been linked with Newcastle as well, so maybe he could be an alternative at one point. If he does get that move, £7.5 million might be a bit of a bargain for him. But yeah, at the moment in time, again, I'm just staying a little bit away. Haaland, what can you say? He's going to score goals, isn't he? He probably had a particularly poor season last year for him. He missed a run of games as well in there. So yeah, to still get the 181 points, I think he obviously would have probably got another 50 or 60 points on top of that if it had been normal sort of form. Strand Larson, someone I like, again has been sort of linked with transfers away, but Wolves' run of fixtures in the early days is putting me off a little bit from sort of bringing him in. But I think 6.5, one for the future as well. But I think your £6.5 million, I like Delap, but I just don't think he'll start week in, week out. João Pedro, I think it's pretty obvious. I think he's going to be the most selected striker in the game. He's had a fantastic summer. He gets goals and assists. If you look, 23 starts, 16 goal contributions last season for a Brighton team. That's pretty outstanding. So I think he'll be definitely really popular. I think with Nicholas Jackson as well, being suspended, which is obviously key. He's probably going to be starting that first game of the season. So yeah, I think he's again a bit of a no-brainer to sort of get into your team. So yeah, so it doesn't surprise me to see João Pedro there. Obviously, is the most selected striker. Nearly, yeah, 60% of people, and again, like I say, doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Haaland, obviously, I think is going to be popular again as the season goes on. Solanke is a good player, but yeah, I think Pedro, Bowen, Haaland for me has to be. I think that has to be sort of the strike force. I think it's good early sort of season games for them to play in, and yeah, I think that's a real sort of good balance of players in there as well. Good strikers, good goal opportunities. Going to be on a lot of set pieces, penalties, and like I say, opening run of fixtures as well is going to be really sort of key. So yeah, so I think that's my sort of week one team. There, Cole Palmer I think is an early sort of captain choice against Palace, and then Verts as vice captain. But as I sort of say, I think that's subject to change at this moment in time. I do think obviously there is opportunities for things to change. Could be new transfers, could be injuries. As sort of the pre-season goes on and we get a little bit nearer, a couple of weeks away now, obviously before the season starts, we all have a little tweak and change. But at this moment in time, I'm fairly happy with that sort of team. I think it's got good balance. We're targeting those early game weeks as well to sort of try and jump on top of that. But also at the same time, they are players who generally will score good points throughout the season. There's a couple of sort of like you say wild cards in there at the moment in time. Maybe a Dringer, obviously Wan-Bissaka, are probably those sort of players in Kelleher. But as I say, early season fixtures and sort of prices that they are, I definitely think that they're players that you should consider getting into your team. So yeah, drop your thoughts, drop your likes, suggestions, comments into the chat. Tell me obviously who's in your team, whether you agree or disagree with some of the choices I've made. Football's all about opinions, and so is fantasy football. So yeah, till next time. Take care of yourselves. We'll be back with another video next week where we'll start drilling a little bit more into that game week one and maybe other differentials, etc. that you might want to think about, or even new transfers that are coming in as well. We can look at those. Okay, bye bye.